Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We are so excited to be talking with you today, and we have a special guest, Kamila. We all met at this very beginning of our soul journeys together, and she was one of the fellow Canadians in our training group. And so, of course, it's like, oh, we all connect and get to talk. And she's been in our lives ever since and has been a beautiful addition to our lives. And so she is a mystic and a medicine woman. And she is going to be talking to us about her unique health journey and how, she's moved through it, obviously on a human side, but also on a spiritual side, and with her gifts and her guides and that whole journey that kind of holds. And then just, a girl's catch up in time. So thanks, Kamila.
Thanks so much for having me. I just am so excited to catch up with you guys and laugh because we always just like end up laughing so much. And you guys allow me to bring levity and joy to some, hard topics to talk about. So I thought, who do I want to share this with? My two besties that just make me feel safe and make me feel welcome. And yeah, who always just like hold such vibrant space for me. So thanks for having me. I missed you guys.
We missed you too. And thank you so much for coming back. We actually had Kamila on the podcast a couple
Twice.
seasons ago. Yeah, we did it was a two-parter. And I think it was in 2022. 2022. Yes. So you can go back. We were talking about the path of the wild woman. So Kamila is still definitely on that path of the wild woman, and we're excited to hear your story today.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I sure am, guys.
Does it ever the wild end? Woman.
Yeah, it's definitely been, since we've last spoken, I got some really crazy twists and turns in my journey. And, you think you've just gone over a hump and I feel like any time in my life, I'm like, okay, I think I'm okay. Like, I think I'm in a good place. I think I've learned a lot. I think I'm going to like chill for a while and just like coast and like be a regular person. Yes. And then the universe is like, nah.
We got other plans for you, Missy.
Yes. And that's kind of what happened. So long story short, I know I've talked about this in other podcasts, but I've suffered with severe reproductive issues since I've gotten my period. And over the last, 20 plus years, have been on this journey of trying to heal myself. And, at the beginning of my path and of my healing journey, it was a lot of allopathic, a lot of medical treatments and getting gaslit and trying different birth controls and essentially being told it was in my head and then being misdiagnosed with all these mental health issues. And it took a long time. It literally took me almost 15 years to get diagnosed.
Wow.
And I ended up actually diagnosing myself by doing research on the internet of my symptoms after a really, really bad flare-up. And I found this thing called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And then also endometriosis. And that kind of started this journey of me really like finding my voice. As a child, I was very much, I think we all are as girls, and it's not really like, I can't blame anyone for this. It's just, I think societal and cultural, pressures of like, you just don't say no. Yeah. You don't speak out. You kind of just, and as a child, I learned very quickly, especially as a teenager, that it was just easier for me if I just agreed.
Yes.
And went along with what the adults in my life were saying. And so, yeah, it was very, very frustrating because for a long time, I just thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was broken. I thought I was flawed. And that stays with you when you grow up thinking that there's something wrong with you internally as a person, that I just wasn't like strong enough, that I wasn't trying hard enough, you know, because people around me weren't having these sorts of issues and this wasn't talked about. So, you know, fast forward to me then finally finding out, like, what the heck, this is an actual thing that's medically, had just at the time been approved as like a medical condition. And I brought it to my doctor, and even she was kind of like, I don't know. And I was like, no, like, this is real. And that changed things for me in a big way, because then I actually had something that I could go back to, you know, my workplace with and my parents with, and be like, this isn't actually in my head.
Right.
Like, I'm not a shitty person. This is actually a condition that I'm, you know, dealing with. And even though the diagnosis helped, it didn't really solve the issue. And I ended up going through surgeries and having trying on a lot of different medications, and none of that really helped. And that's what really triggered me to go down the spiritual path, because I wanted to heal myself. And it started with like getting into alternative medicine. And then it started to get into manifestation, and then shamanic healing. And then I eventually found my way into the course that I was with you guys in. You know, we were learning how to be intuitives. And around that time, I was considering a hysterectomy, and I ended up, you know, then COVID happened and everything got put on hold. And then I went down this priestess path. And I started working with these womb priestesses and these mentors. And it was a really, really, really beautiful experience. But it was also very confusing, because there was this rhetoric, even in the wellness space, that allopathic medicine is the devil, you know, doctors are evil, and that everyone can just heal themselves. And I found myself for a few years just kind of being like bounced back and forth from like healer to healer to healer, to like trying all these different like alternative modalities, shamanic modalities, just desperately trying to heal myself. I mean, I even like quit my job. I went on leave, like took out all the stress in my life, like cleaned out everything, like didn't drink, like I still don't drink, but like didn't drink, didn't like eat anything that would trigger me, like really tried to like do everything that, you know, the wellness space was telling me was going to work. Like, I have books in my library of like everything on the planet, like how you can heal yourself, you know? And it just wasn't working. And then again, I felt like a failure, because when I would bring up the big H word, hysterectomy, to a lot of these people, it was always like, no, like, that's not the way to go about it. Like, you're just not doing this. You're just not applying yourself enough. You're just not this, you know? And that was very, very confusing.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I went through that in hindsight, because again, it was like I had to find my voice and fight for my health with my doctor. And then I had to find my voice and find my own path through my healing journey. And what really started to happen was I started to connect with my ancestors. And then I know you guys deal a lot with the Akashic records, but I started to go into my Akashic records, and I was like, okay, is this supposed to happen or is this not supposed to happen? Like, I need some freaking answers. Like, what's happening here? And I kept hearing, you're asking the wrong question from my guides. You're asking the wrong question. Don't you love it when they do that?
No, I don't.
Like,
and they don't even give like a straight answer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. They don't even give a straight answer. And you're like, what's your problem, man? God.
It took me a year. I'm not kidding you. A year to figure out what the freaking right question was.
Well, what was the right question? Do you remember what it was?
Who am I meant to be here?
Who am I meant to be here?
Oh. What?
That's a great question.
It is a great question. Jeez, they're so philosophical on the other side. I'm like,
we do not work that way at a human level, so that's a trick.
It is a trick. Well, I even find as intuitives, you know, I was thinking of this the other day, as intuitives, we receive in that type of frequency. The messages we receive is that. And so when you're relaying messages to clients, because like sometimes I take myself out of it and I'm like watching from the outside to be like, okay, how is this person receiving this and how would I receive it? And I'm like, for fuck's sakes, it sometimes it's like, what do you mean? Like that's not tangible or blah blah blah. And you're like, that's what they're saying on the other side, right? Like they say it in such philosophical, higher perspective levels that sometimes it's frustrating, lots of times, to the human, right? To receive the messages. But as intuitives, we feel it, like it's like we feel it so much, we're like, no, that's exactly what needs to happen. But again, it's that bridge between the spirit realm and the tangible that we can actually like do on this side, you know. Yeah, so that's so interesting. Like it was some philosophical thing and you're like, okay, fine, what am I meant to do and be?
Who am I
And then
meant
what
to
did they
be
say?
here? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say too, like they do that because I think that they want us to figure it out. They don't want to just give us the answer because then it's like they're doing the work for us. And this is a school for souls. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah,
so
there's
I
no
think
point. Yeah.
So the part B to that question was the here, because I was always looking at, you know, me being I'm a Pisces, I'm an intuitive, my heads are in the clouds. I love to channel star families and, you know, like higher dimensional beings. And I was always looking at like, okay, well, what's next? Like, why am I here on this planet? Like, what do I have to go through so that I can get out of here? Like that was essentially the question always, right? And then like interdimensional beings tell me. And like, of course they can't. Like they don't know what it's like to be a human.
No.
So it's like, who am I meant to be here on this planet right now? And when I started to get glimpses of that, I would ask my future self. So I'd always travel to my future self, like off the planet. But now I'm traveling to my future self on the planet, like, you know, me in my like 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yes.
And I started to really work with her a lot. And I would ask her, like, who am I meant to be? And she would show me. And she started doing really funny things. She would lift, I think I told Allie this. She would lift her dress, because I always wear dresses, and she would show me that she would be like, nothing, there's nothing left here. And I was like, what do you mean there's nothing left? Because there was a point in time where I was thinking of getting a partial hysterectomy where you keep so I already had one ovary removed, but I would keep my other ovary so I wouldn't have to go through like menopause. And she was like, no, you need to get rid of everything. And then you will become who you are meant to be here.
Wow, I just got shivers.
Yeah. And then I was also getting the same messages from my ancestor, my grandmother, who I've never met on my dad's side, who I think I've talked about on the other podcasts. And she was coming to me saying, like, you need to get this hysterectomy because there's a lot of ancestral pain and trauma. And like you're holding this like whole feminine lineage of like pain and trauma in your womb space. And it's your big P purpose right now is to heal that. And you can, and by healing that, you actually have to remove this physical energy from your womb space. And then I was like, oh, okay.
I just want to say that's so interesting and probably very validating for so many people that are going through what you've gone through with the PMDD, right? And the endometriosis. I never even considered, because I haven't read on it, but I've never really considered that you could be experiencing all of that pain because you're carrying so much pain from your ancestors physically. All that energy is just manifested physically in your womb space, but it's tied to your ancestors. And then that's crazy. That's so cool. And again, so brave of you to move through and for you to experience. And thank you so much for sharing this. This is probably very validating for a lot of people.
I think so too. And that's why I wanted to share it, right? Because you know, part of me was like, I just want to like curl up and never speak to anyone again. That's because I'm an introvert. But I knew that I was also told, like, an Allie. So what happened after I got all these messages is I was like, okay, I need to talk to someone I trust, because even as an intuitive myself, you still second guess these messages that you're getting because it's such a high stakes thing. Like, there's no going back. You can't, like, it's not like, you know, you get your eyebrows done and then if they don't look good, then you just wait for them to, like, you know, get out.
Fade away.
There's no tucking these parts back in.
No.
Right. So I remember I was like, can you talk to someone that I trust? And so I went and I booked a reading with Allie last year, and I hadn't told her anything. Right. I just asked her point blank in the reading, like, should I get a hysterectomy? And there was like absolutely no pause, just straight yes. And here's why. And literally word for word told me exactly what I'd been receiving. And that was such a gift for me, Allie, because again, like, you second guess yourself when it's when you're trying to read yourself. It's subtle, it's nuanced, and you have so much emotion tied to what your guides are telling you that I feel like it again reiterated to me that, like, what we do is so beautiful and so special. Because that's, you know, a lot of times, I'm sure you guys get this too, and I'm curious to know what you think. Like, when someone comes to you for a reading or for a healing, and you're able to validate them in something that they already knew, that to me is the biggest gift.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, and readings are very much all that. You know, it's the things that, you know, we're connecting to, the things that are already there floating, you know, and people most of the time already have an inkling or a feeling because their own intuition's kicking in and giving them that. And then to have like somebody outside that's not aware of it or whatever and say it, it just like helps you to anchor into it more. And you know, and I think in those things, like sometimes the messages are not easy to give. You know, and that's where it's like obviously that message wasn't an easy one to give because there's so much held on to that as a woman, that emotionally you would need to move through, to be able to, you know, go through that process. So I'm so glad that you were in a spot, in a place that you were, that it, when you received it, you were able to receive it, because it was just kind of like what you needed to then move forward. So I'm so glad.
Thank you. And then the other part too that was interesting is, so they didn't just stop there. They were like, not only do you need to get a hysterectomy, you need to completely put your business on hold and almost like shut it down.
And you're like, no.
Something that I had worked so hard to build, you know, as you guys know, as entrepreneurs. But I just kept getting this message, like, you can't hold space for other women when you're moving through so much, and that, like, you just need to trust that you're going to land where you need to land. And so I did that. And then I knew that, like, I needed to do something, because sitting at home and doing nothing while you're waiting for your surgery, and you know, I was on a waiting list for like a year and a half to 2 years. I ended up getting in really a lot earlier, because I feel like I told my guides, like, if this is what's meant to happen, like, make it happen. And they did. Like, they got me in really quick. The woman that did my surgery was like a Polish doctor that I grew up with.
Wow.
Right. Like, so just beautiful things happened. And like, just, you know, just so many people, so many little synchronistic things happened to help it move along quicker. But I ended up actually going back to doing communications, which is what I went to school for and what I did prior to this. And I was able to work from home, was able to work for like an agency that was like very, very good to me with like dealing with my health. And I realized how much I missed it. And that was also conflicting too, right?
Yes.
Because I'm like, well, wait a minute. What, you know? And so then I had to sit with that for a bit. And then after my surgery, I wasn't, like, to be honest, guys, like, I really wasn't sure I was going to come back. I really, really wasn't sure. And I remember Allie and I talked about this once, and she's like, you're coming back. You just don't know what it is yet. Like, don't worry. And I really didn't think I was. And then like a few, weeks after my surgery, and I started to heal. And by the way, menopause is no joke.
I
So
bet.
I ended up like going and having hot flashes like hours after my surgery, like in the
Oh,
hospital.
that fast.
That
That's
fast.
crazy. But you know what? That actually makes sense because, like, after having kids, I remember like I had a C-section, so it wasn't like the regular way that your body, has a kid, but it like instantly, like hormonally, was unbelievably how fast that can like change. And like the hots, like I would remember just sweating, and I was like, what is this? And it's just like, because the body's like, oh, wait a minute, we're not pregnant. Okay, now they're just like, let's just let out all the hormones. So that would make sense, that if all of a sudden, then same type of thing, you're having a surgery that's affecting the hormones, that it like comes on that fast. And it is like I've been in perimenopause for numerous years, and so I'm like, yeah, like the going through like the hot flashes, and it's not a fun
Well,
thing.
and then there's the whole like HRT, hormonal replacement therapy
Mm.
discussion. And there's so many opinions about that. And so many, I remember right before my surgery, like a woman in my circle coming, like not in my circle, just like an acquaintance of my parents, like telling me like, you should really do your research, and like, it can cause all sorts of things. And then like kind of causing fear on me. But like,
Yeah.
I'm 38, I'm not supposed to be going through menopause for many,
No.
many, many years. And again, it doesn't matter. And again, I tie this back to the wild woman path, because I truly believe every body is different.
Yeah.
That's why I don't,
Yeah.
in life, in health, or business, if someone is telling you that this is the only way to do a thing, run in the other direction, because that is so wrong. There
Yes.
is
Yeah.
no magic pill for anything. Like, every body is different. Every soul contract is different, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's energy is different. So what's right for this person doesn't mean that it's right for you. And you really have to sit with what feels resonant for you. And
Mhm.
for me, I felt very, very safe and resonant in the fact that I should take these hormones.
Yeah.
And my guides were saying, yes, take them. Like, you're so young. The other shoe of the spectrum, like, is there's, if you stop taking these hormones that your body needs, like, there's risk of fatality and like all these
Mm.
other things, right? And I was just like, but it's just never easy,
Yeah.
it's not like you have one path. You just, and there's like tons of information and support. It's like with women's health, there is
My gosh, so
it's a
much that
freaking
they
shit show.
they don't know. It's
No.
unbelievable how much they don't know about it. And you're right. And I think part of that is like there's so much shaming within so many parts of women and their health and all of these things. Like, this is just another thing to be like, oh my god, like, you shouldn't be on hormone replacement therapy or whatever. And I'm on hormone replacement therapy because, again, my perimenopause started younger than it normally should. And that's where it's like, okay, well, technically I'm really not supposed to lose all that estrogen. This will affect, there's repercussions of that starting early that can affect my bones or whatever. And and like you said, our contracts are our contracts. If I kind of look at things and it's like, in the moment, if that's what you feel like you need to do, or that's what feels right, then you do that. It doesn't mean that you won't change your mind 5-10 years from then, right? Like, because we
Mhm.
we grow as human beings. We're only doing what we can in the moment that feels right. And whatever is meant to happen in your life is going to happen no matter what. So whether you take the hormone therapy, whether you don't take the hormone therapy, it's like trusting that there's a path for you that you're going to take. It's going to happen no matter what. So does it matter? No, it doesn't. There, that's my
No.
rant.
But I really appreciated when you told me that you were on it,
Yeah.
and that, like, hearing how you came to that decision and why you came to that decision, even though, there's a lot of rhetoric and, again, these studies have now since been debunked, but there's a lot of stuff out there that, it's very fear mongering about HRT. And, I was, since this, I've been doing a lot of research myself, and like, there's a lot of now gynecologists and female doctors and male doctors that are speaking up against this, and how there's been a whole generations of women who have been suffering from not receiving HRT. And like, I think about some of the women in my life that I know that have had crazy stuff happening to them while they're going through menopause, and how much they've suffered because they didn't even know HRT was an option. Like even my poor mom, like my mom had a really hard time going through menopause, and like never even thought it was an option to get HRT. And now I'm thinking to myself, like, I wonder if you maybe would have gone on estrogen, if it would have helped you. Because I know for me, being on like, it took me a while to find a dosage, and I'm like 4 months out and I'm still like figuring things out.
Yeah.
But I feel so much better. Like I don't regret it. It was not fun. It was a boring, long recovery, and I'm still recovering, but I don't regret it because I know that it was the right thing for me to do. And I feel good in the decision that I made because I know I followed my instinct, intuition.
Yeah.
And my body doesn't lie, right? Like at the end of the day, like my body feels really, really good on estrogen. Like my body feels really good right now. Like I've been starting to slowly have more energy than I've had in years. Right. And so it's like, I had a sister circle last night, and we were talking about the war on women's body. And this thing came out of my mouth, and I was like, "Whoa, that's deep." Don't you love when that happens?
You're like, "Who that? Wow, I sound so intelligent." And then you're like, "Wasn't me.
But it was like the mind. So the monkey mind plays games. The ego loves to tell stories, but the body never lies.
Ooh,
oh, I love that.
The monkey mind plays games. The ego likes to tell stories. Oh, I like that.
The body never lies. I like to say all the time, I always say, energy doesn't lie. It doesn't lie.
No. Yeah, it is what it is. Like it's the mind and the ego that then create a different reality, but it's like it is what it is. Yeah.
And if you just pay attention to what your body's saying or what the energy is saying, that's the truth right there. You don't have to listen to the monkey mind or the ego.
It's so true. And like, especially with women, we are way more intuitive and connected, right? That's just our biology. Like we're a freaking walking magic 8-ball.
Yeah.
And like, if you think about it, when I, and I'm sure when you're working with too, like I work a lot with women in embodiment work because I've had to really, really learn that myself. And it's helped me immensely to come back into my body after so many years of chronic pain, sexual abuse, blah, blah, blah. Like I was so ejected out of my body. And I think that is a huge reason why I was so sick as well. Because I also have chronic fatigue syndrome, like all these other things too, right? That I'm dealing with. But, I think about like, I always tell people, like, have you ever been talking to someone? This happened to me at a job interview like a few years ago. I was at a job interview, and it was something that I was actually quite excited for. It looked really good on paper. I actually really liked the woman that I was going to be working with. Like she seemed really cool. Get onto the call. I'm talking with this woman. Everything's fine, but my body is freaking sweating. Like my body is sweating. I'm breaking out in hives. I'm turning red. Like I can see myself on my Zoom camera, just like turning red. My head is pounding.
Wow.
Like I can barely get anything out. I feel so tight in my womb. Like everything's just like tight. There's like my hands have like my nails are like this so that like I can feel. And I was like, and I got off that call and I was like, well, that was okay. I should, the mind's like, that was okay. You should probably take that job. And then I was like, wait a minute, what? And then I was like, what
Yeah.
just happened to my body? Right. And I was like, why are you
Mhm.
gaslighting yourself? Like, that was clearly your body telling you this is
Gaslighting.
not for you.
Yeah. Oh my God, how
Oh
many
my
times
God.
do we gaslight ourselves? And even in a day, right? When we're not listening to
Yeah.
that energy or to our body, like so many times.
I
So many
I
times.
never even thought about it like that, like
Yeah.
gaslighting yourself. Like it's so freaking true,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
Wow.
even like, in relationships, like women a lot of the time will say, like, my body started doing really weird things in this relationship. Like, this relationship that I knew was supposed to end. I worked with women, and I've had that happen to myself, where I would like get yeast infections, or my partner would get like some weird
Mm.
infection, or like I would start to break out in rashes anytime they touched me. Like,
Wow.
again, the body doesn't lie. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Crazy.
yeah, so that's why I've always, and the energy doesn't lie either, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, you can walk into a room with someone and your energy is just like, I don't know. I had this weird thing happen to me the other day. I was on a call with someone and I knew they were lying to me. Okay.
Hmm.
Like on the Zoom call. And this weird thing happened where almost like a mirror came up on my eyes, and it was like a shield. And I
Mm.
No.
just like, my body did, my energy did this like energetic shield, and was like, nope, you're not penetrating me today.
And
Like, and
it's
it kept going
reflecting
like
back.
this. Yeah, it was just like reflecting
Wow.
back the like bad vibes that they were sending me. And I
Crazy.
was like, that's never happened to me before. That's really cool. Thank you, energy.
I love when those new things show up and you're like, what was that? That was
Yeah.
cool. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
That's so neat. Wow. Well, and it's like, even in the sense of, your journey was teaching you how to advocate for yourself. Like, the fact that you even diagnosed yourself, and that's very much what has to happen. Like, as much as people are like, oh, don't go to be a Google doctor and all of these things. And it's like, but no, that's empowering us to sit there and weave it out and find it. And yes, I get it. Some people go too far and then they've got everything. I totally see that. There's polarity in everything. But I also see how it's empowering to allow you to do the research and to then be able to trust. Because, like, when you came across that and it just hit home and you were like, that's it. Like, there was nothing else to you. You knew that was it. I
Hmm.
I I had the same experience with Lyme disease when I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I was, you know, you put a lot of faith, or you're taught to put a lot of faith in the medical system, in the doctors. I don't know anything. You've gone to school for how long? You tell me. And it forced, right? Like, I don't know. And it forced me into, like, that was for me part of my push, one of the many pushes into connecting to my own intuition. But same type of thing. Like, I remember getting a diagnosis and being like, no, that doesn't feel right. And I remember even at some point desperately just wanting it to be something that I was even like, just let it be. And my instincts were like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, nope, it is it. It is it. We've got a doctor saying this. And I was like trying to be like, because I just wanted, that it's one thing to not know. And you're like, well, it's something. So we can either just not know and not do anything to move forward to get better, or we dig to find out. And then I remember when I came across chronic Lyme, and it was totally my guides, because I'd had this had been brought up many times, that I'd been like, no, it's not that, no. And then finally by the third one, I was like, okay, wait a minute, something's going on here outside myself. See, that's totally like, this is like, it was like one of my first times that I kind of like sat there and went like, hold up, who's up there? who's who's doing something? Because this is too, this can't happen, that this gets brought up how many times. And then I remember doing that Google search, and I searched the exact words that person, the third person, told me. And right away I was like, that's it. 100%. There was nothing. My whole body was like, that is it. And then I went with it, you know, and like, and it was, so it's like, it's amazing. And I'm like, not even connected to anything intuition wise, but I knew that was the first time that I knew that it was Lyme disease. It was chronic Lyme. And then sure enough, it was. And so it's like, who else is going to fight for you? You
Well,
know?
and there's like two things that sparked something in me. I didn't know that about you, and I'm like very sorry to hear that. One thing is like it continues to amaze me how many light workers and intuitives have chronic illness as an initiation. It is
Oh,
literally an initiation. Like
yeah.
it
Interesting.
is like a lot of them have either health or like something else that happens in their life. But health, especially for women, I find is a big one. I think there's something in it that forces us to really trust ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, especially like autoimmune stuff like that. You hear that a lot. Like I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Um and then the second thing is like, yes, I get that. Like, this isn't like we're not shitting on doctors. I have seen and been witness to some amazing doctors out there who do care. And I don't even think it's really their fault. Like
No.
at the end of the day, it's like they're seeing how many patients a day.
Yeah.
You don't learn a lot about women's health in, you know, in medical school because the research isn't there, and so
No.
they're doing the best that they can. And like, if you have a broken foot, your doctor's gonna help you. Like, you gotta trust
It's
the doctor, you
it's
know?
like it's like tangible. It's
Yeah.
there, but they only know what they know, right?
Right.
And that anybody only knows what you know. And so like you're right. Like it's not to say like screw you or
But they're
any of
not
that.
gods, is what I'm trying to
No,
say. And I
yeah.
think that
Totally.
that is what has been, especially like
Yes.
the boomer generation,
Mhm.
they see a lot of political figures, they see a lot of
Mm.
doctors, lawyers, scientists as being these gods, you know?
You
And
give
it's
your
like,
power
They
away.
they
Like
put all
you
their trust in them.
Yes, yes, which is giving your power away.
Mhm.
And that is 100%. You're nailed it there, Kamila, with that sense of like, yeah, we've grown up in this, like, in a way they are a god, right? Like if the doctor says it, it must be true. And so that's also even harder to then be able to push back and go, wait a minute. I don't think so. And that's like really fucking tough to have to speak up. And then I think on the other layer on there is, and then as a woman
oh,
who
Mhm.
is supposed to agree, you're raised to, you know, kind of agree and move forward like that. And you're down upon when you kind of stand up for yourself, you know? So yeah, you nailed that one.
and doesn't it seem like a journey? Like it's like, you know, I feel like once you start doing it, you guys, we were talking about this before we were recording about how like you think you get to a place where you're like, okay, I learned my lesson. I've learned to trust the universe. I've learned to flow. So I did this, you know, did this surgery. I was like, I'm really liking this new job. I think I'm going to be here for a while. And then all of a sudden it was like, nope. And I started to get, again, the body doesn't lie. I started to get really ill, started to get migraines, like really, really bad migraines. I started to get really sick when I was doing certain things at my job,
Mm.
unable to concentrate. And I was like, are we doing this again? Like,
I thought I was done.
I thought I was,
No.
you know, I thought I was done here. And I had to really sit with that. And it was really frustrating because it's also like it's one thing to talk about, but it's hard on our families. It's hard on our
Yeah.
partners. It's hard on my stepdaughter to be like, okay, we feel like you're finally stable and safe. And now you're
Mm.
gonna, you know, and that's kind of what started happening. And so I actually just recently, you know, let go of this job
Mhm.
and am starting to work on my business again. And, you know, but again, now I'm in this space where I don't have it all figured out right now. I don't know what's next. I don't know, am I going to go back full time in my business? Am I going to try and find another job and try and do both? I have no freaking clue. And I kept trying to cling on and tell the universe, like, I'm not leaving. until you tell me what to do. Because because that's what normal freaking people do. They don't just quit a job until they have a new job. Right?
Oh my God.
I feel like we've had this fight with our spirit team still.
I'm like, we haven't
ended this argument.
it. And we sit there and we're like, no, you don't get to tell us to go do that without showing us this first. And I'm sitting here going like, oh God, do they always win? They do always win, don't they? I'm like, every single time I've gotten my back up and I'm like, I'm done, screw you, bye. I'm like, they do win. So I don't know what that means.
Right. Oh, and so then I had to sit there. Exactly. But it is. And then I had to sit there like miserable for like weeks being like, how do I bring this up with my partner? How do I, you know, like not seem like a freaking loser to my stepdaughter who's like my stepmom can't figure her life out? What am I going to tell my freaking parents? Like, you know, like all the, like, I want to be a good girl. I want to be a good daughter. I don't want to disturb the peace. And then I just finally was like, I'm a fucking wild woman. Hear me roar. That's who I am. That is who I am meant to be here. That is what my guides keep telling me to do, that like my path is never going to be normal. And that's okay. I can have moments where I've had to allow myself to grieve that.
Right.
The fact that like, I'm not going to have a linear path. It's not going to be easy. No one's going to hold my hand and walk me, you know, down the path. And I had to grieve that and grieve that and grieve that, because that takes so much bravery and so much honesty and so much like energy and trust and abuse. You know, like I feel abused sometimes. Like, can you stop yelling and slapping me around?
Oh my God.
Trying to live here.
They're just using you, right? Like that's sometimes I feel used. Like you're just, I'm just your friggin' entertainment down here. Like stop using me for your entertainment, putting me through all this pressure and this dumb shit.
and like what I can hear right now, like with that, is them saying, we're doing nothing. This was what your soul chose. And then you're like, oh, accountability. Okay. Accountability to something I'm not even aware of.
Right.
I know. And I'm hearing, you abuse us. We're just doing what your soul wanted you to do.
Always. How many times are you just like, get out of here, beat it? Like, well, at least I am. I'm not the nicest. I think somebody said, I wonder if H will ever quit you.
I think
Did you say that? I wonder if he'll ever quit you. And I was
like, sometimes we just quit. We need to quit spirit for a day or two. And we're just like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I can't do it anymore.
Like, don't even talk to me.
I'm going back to be a human, normal. Take it all back. Yeah. But then I was like, then we were talking about how we quit spirit. I'm like, I wonder if spirit ever feels like quitting us. They're just like, I can't do it anymore. They're just not getting it. I'm too frustrated.
I'm too frustrated. Oh my God, right? You're just like, oh my God, have some compassion. We have blinders on. Understand that. Oh my God.
It's so true though. And you know, like I got really angry with my guides, and I started to be like, you guys don't know what it's like to be here. F you. And I started to, but again, there's a reason for that. Then that caused me to really start to work with my ancestors, because my ancestors, and I've talked about this before, like I'm Polish, I was born in Poland, but I always felt really, not always, I shouldn't say, but since I was young, I really didn't feel connected to my ancestry or my culture, because I knew deep down that I was here to do ancestral healing. And that was such a big, heavy thing to do. And I was just like, why? What do we, like everybody, like I just felt like they all wanted something from me, because they did. And I was like, just leave me alone, you know? Yes. But it was beautiful, because it did bring me home to them in a way that I didn't really look at it from this perspective. I heard a podcast. Her name is Perdita Finn. Do you know who Sophie Strand is?
The name is familiar.
She's like a really prolific author on like divine feminine, masculine, but her mom is also a really, really beautiful writer. And she writes a lot about connecting with the dead and the ancestors. And I listened to this podcast because I'm just like obsessed with that family, obviously. And she talked about how she has this practice where she tasks her ancestors with certain things. So that's
Oh,
yeah, so because they've actually been here. So a lot of her human worries, her everyday struggles, her everyday worries, she will task her ancestors with. And I started to do that because I'm like, you know what? My grandfather, whom I adore, suffered with alcohol addiction. And I've been working with him a lot with like just various addictions, whether it's like social media or sugar or whatever, right?
yeah.
And even smoking, because I used to smoke. And I remember like,
Me too.
yeah, back in the day, those like
So
thin
good.
little cigarettes. Yeah, that's what
So
I used to smoke.
good.
Oh yeah, we're so cool.
We're so
So
good.
cool. Oh my God.
I would like totally, if I could like, just do it one day and know that there'd be no repercussions of wanting to do it again. Heck yeah. Sign me up.
It was the best thing for my anxiety, I thought,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there's totally like everything. Even as a mom, it would be like my 5 minutes to get away because you can't come out and talk to me while I'm smoking, right? Because you're not allowed to be around me. And I was just like, it was my time to be like,
Yeah.
so relaxing.
It was. It was.
I don't know what it is. It's so bloody relaxing. So,
It
but
wasn't
yeah.
the smoking. It was for me, I think it was the breathing.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you
I
have
could
to take
totally
big
see that.
breaths and you're just like, right.
And it
And
was like
yeah,
a timeout.
it was
Like
a
to me, it's
timeout.
a timeout from life. It was just a timeout. And so, yeah, so interesting. Yeah, it's a good
And
way to think about
so,
it.
yeah. And so I'm working with these various ancestors, like even for my job, like I'm working with my Uncle Frank, who passed away a few years ago, and my Auntie Mary, and they were married. And I was like, help me figure it out. You guys were really good with money. You guys had like, he had a really successful business. I was like, help me out, And so and it's actually been really beautiful. Reconnecting with them in that way. And then them helping me also feel more at home with my family and with my relatives and me reconnecting with them because now I feel like I have stronger boundaries. I feel like I really do feel like something has really energetically shifted with this removal of this energy of my womb, of my physical womb, in that I don't feel that same resistance with them anymore. Like it's
Wow.
really, really changed my relationship. Like I actually want to hang out with them and I don't get super triggered by them anymore. And like, again, I don't know if it has all to do with that, but it definitely helped me to really like ground in. And that journey of the hysterectomy and all of that, like, again, it just every time you do it, it does make the next leap of faith a little bit easier because you build that trust with the universe and the fact that, like, I know you're going to catch me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
scary and, and it's terrifying and it's not easy for the people that live with me. I know that, but I know that you're going to catch me and that you're going to take me where I'm meant to go next.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like partly we do get tested on that front, like even if you took a leap once, it's not like, okay, I've taken a leap once, okay, we did it. We don't have to do it again. It's like you get retested do you trust? Can you release? Can you let go? And see that it's coming. And I'm going to tell you a little story. This is on such a micro level, but it just literally happened to me today. So I was driving into town because I had a meeting for work outside of Soul Star Energy Collective. So whatever. And I realized like I was like, ooh, I'm like cutting it short. And it was a meeting that we had some important people at. So I was like, oh God, I don't want to like show up late and be like, lizard, that's me. And so I was like, Mandy came into my head because she always reminds me because I'm not good at this stuff. Mandy came in and was like, clear the path. And I was like, okay, I'll clear the path. And so like, I was like, it's fine. It's going to be completely cleared. And I'm going to find parking and I'm going to get there on time. Right. I went and I did that. No. No, it wasn't happening. It was like within a minute of getting on the road, and I'm like approaching, and I'm like, what the fuck? I thought you guys were supposed to clear the way. I'm like, why is there that? And it kept happening as I was going down. And so I was in my head being like, the hell? I never ask you guys to clear the way. And the one time, and I started getting myself a little hyped up. And then finally I just was like, I just heard it. And it was just like, you need to just trust. And it was like, okay, fine, fine. And I also released in the sense of like, and also I don't care. If I show up late, I show up late. I don't care. It was like I just released it. And the moment I released it, obviously it released the anxiety, it released all of that. It just was. It just was. And sure enough, I got there like right on time, like literally to the minute. I would have liked to be a few minutes early, but it hadn't started. It was to the minute. I got there, but I had so many things on the road, like construction, so many things that kept popping up that I was like, you would sit there and be like, no, you don't got me. Even the parking spot that I envisioned in my head, because I was like, okay, this isn't all working out, but can you find me a parking spot right here? And I was like, yeah, there's gonna be a parking spot there, Allison. It's fine. It's totally cool. No, you know what happened? Literally the person in front of me driving pulled, like out of all the odds, pulled and parked in the one spot that parking lot that I was envisioning I wanted to park at and I was like, get the fuck out. I literally was like, I like let go of everything, and you just did that like to push it in me. And then whatever, I went to my second favorite spot and I found one right away. But it was like this moment of like, we got you there, didn't we? Maybe it wasn't the easiest route. Maybe we made you doubt yourself along the way, or doubt that we were going to do it. Yes, you did. But we got you there right on time, didn't we? And I was like, oh shit. Oh man. Ooh. And so like just looking, that's on a very obviously micro scale, but it completely shows the journey
Well,
of
what a
like
great
trusting.
example of what happens.
Yeah.
Not a, like that is exactly, it is a micro, but it's exactly, you can extrapolate that into every macro situation, because that is exactly,
totally.
that is life.
Yeah.
It's not going to go the way you plan. The more that you plan, the more that you're going to get disappointed.
Yes. And expectation, right? Like that was something somebody had said to me, was like, I was like, well, I did all the things. I didn't think it would turn out this way. And it was like, well, that's because you added expectation to how it was going to turn out. And I was like, well, yeah, no, that's right. I did. I was expecting something and something else happened. And it's like, well, that's your problem right there. It's the expectations we put on to things. Like I 100% expected that I would literally have a clear drive down and I would have the perfect spot, because that's what I had manifested and that's what I was calling forward, and I would get there on time. None of that happened, but I did get there on time.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
did get there on
I
time.
did get
Did
the
you hear
end
yourself
result.
there?
Yes. Yeah. And it's like the end result is I did get there on time, but how I got there, none of it happened the way I envisioned it would happen. And so just even having this conversation right now, I'm like sitting there going, holy fuck.
It's true though, because
realization.
But like you nailed it on the head, because like, even with my journey, like I was supposed to get this surgery before COVID. And I was living on my own. I was, I hadn't been living with my partner. I had a lot of financial commitments at that time. And the way that it happened, and like the fact that I had this amazing family and my partner who literally doted on me hand and foot, like emotionally, physically, mentally supporting me throughout the entire process, did more research than I did, like bought me things, like literally like printed out a sheet for me of like what to expect like every week after surgery. Like he was like incredible. And I just think that like I wouldn't have bounced back as quickly, and I wouldn't have been as trusting and like kind to my body if it wasn't for him. And so again, it's not how I expected it to happen, but I got there in the right time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then unfolded exactly the way it was meant to unfold. It's always in retrospect, right? It's always when you look back and you're like, you completely see it all for what the truth and all of what it is.
And I feel that now we're now both, now each of us are in that same spot where like the two of you, are you both still working? Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Right. And so this isn't probably, and that's fine, but
Yeah.
it's probably not the way that you thought that this was going to go.
Not at all.
True.
Yeah.
Right. But look at the beautiful business that you guys have built. I love how regenerative it is. And I've been looking at that word a lot because I've been obsessed with building not just sustainable lifestyles and sustainable businesses, but regenerative businesses, right? That like, it's not just sustaining you, but it's actually like creating a community and it's growing naturally. And it's, you guys have been, because you guys have, well, look at the way you collaborate, first of all. Like, there's this beautiful collaboration between these two powerhouses, right? And then you guys are also creating this beautiful community. Like all of the things that you guys put out into your community and the offerings and the, other intuitives that you bring together. Like you guys are seeding future intuitives. You are seeding a legacy of like collaboration and of, helping other intuitives find their gifts and connecting other intuitives to each other. And like, so yeah, it may not be happening at this speed, but like from an outsider looking in, I am so amazed and proud of the like work that you guys are doing and like how much like it seems effortless, but because I'm on the other side, I know how much work goes into that. I know how much like energy these podcasts, creating the content, coming up with the ideas, being really authentic, like all the social media stuff, all the programs that you guys put together, like it's a ton of work, but you guys have this incredible consistency, this brand credibility. I feel like the two of you are completely different people because of this experience, right? And like, what a beautiful example to other women where you see women not competing, but collaborating. And that is truly the feminine way.
Oh,
so I think you guys should be so proud of yourselves.
Aww.
Jeez, that
Thanks,
like,
Kamila. That was so sweet.
I know. And I'm like, to put it in such a beautiful perspective. Like I really appreciate that because I think sometimes when you're in it, it's, you don't realize all the things that you just said. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And okay, like, yeah, like that's so beautiful.
And I
So
know
thank
the
you.
women, I know some of the women who have taken your courses. So I can vouch, and I know you guys, and I've learned with you guys. So I personally know how extremely fucking powerful the two of you are in your own right. But I know, like we share a lot of resources, right? Like we promote each other's content, and I send you people, right? And I talked to these women after, and they are like, thank you so much. Like that was exactly what I needed. And they loved your approach to it because they were feeling maybe a little bit intimidated by some of the other, intuitives out there. And they would tell me so much that this was exactly the type of environment, exactly the type of vibe and pace that they needed, and how they've, created lifelong friendships and relationships with the other people that they've met in a course that you have offered. So like, you guys are literally planting the seeds. And, these jobs that you have, they're your sugar daddies. They're the sugar daddies that are allowing you to do what you love.
It's true.
And you gotta pimp yourself out a little bit sometimes.
Right.
But
that's
like,
so true. I'm totally looking at the bank now as a sugar daddy.
New perspective.
New perspective. Hey, daddy.
Yes. I'll show you some titty if you give me a day off.
Give me a day off.
No, we'll put sugar on that.
And they're feeding your cheap, right? And they're providing security and stability for your family. And I think that's beautiful. And it doesn't have to be something that you love, but it's like you guys could do those jobs in your sleep, right? Like, and you're so good at them, and it's giving you the stability and security so that you guys can play. And in this part of your life, you can experiment and play and grow. And I think that that is another like society programming that like you got to stay in one lane, and like if you don't, and that's another message I think we heard a lot when we were beginning as intuitives, is like you got to just go for it and you got to just do it, and like if you don't do it this way you're not going to be successful. And like look at the two of you, you guys are the perfect example of doing it the way that works for you, and not following other people's paths. And I'm sure you guys got a lot of like, ooh, working with another woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and now you're like,
yeah, isn't that so funny? I know, because it's like these, where it's kind of like, I'm not sure if that's the best idea. And no, I think all of it, right? Like not following the laid out path. And would we 100% love to be doing Soul Star? 100%, absolutely.
and
Do
you
we
will
know? And we will. And that's the thing. I think that's why it has continued, because we know we will one day. And that this is just a part of what we need to do to like get there. And that's what keeps us moving, right? And I think also in anything, the experiences we move through is intentional. So in my role right now is I went into small business, like in the bank. I work with entrepreneurs. I'm working in small business. Like, come on, could you have set that up any better? All of a sudden now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I have a small business, and like I'm like pulling on that stuff. And so like there's purpose and reason for everything, right? Yeah,
totally. And like the last thing I just want to hit home on that is, I think that too, with when and you ask yourself that question of like, who am I supposed to be here? You guys are exactly who you're supposed to be here. And it doesn't matter what you do to make a living, because it doesn't matter if you were working at a car wash, you would still be a fucking intuitive. You would still be a super powerful psychic. You would still be that thing that you were meant to be here. It doesn't always have to be monetized. It doesn't always, like, even though I took time off, I was giving readings to the leadership team at my job. I was giving them tarot readings every Monday or every Tuesday. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was giving energy readings on, also working with small businesses. I was doing energy readings for clients. Like we ended up getting a client that's an intuitive, and I'm working, before I go, I'm working on this intuitives business, like doing their marketing and comms. Right. So it's like, I still am who I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be the way that we think it needs to be in order for us to fulfill our big P purpose. Yeah.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to end that. Thank you. Your story is so inspiring, so brave, so courageous, and just so beautiful. So I feel like sharing this episode and your story with others is really going to provide so much peace and validation for the intuitives and the women who are trying to be on this path and be intuitives and heal their bodies, and maybe understanding that it's not supposed to be the way that everybody's telling you it's supposed to be. So giving yourself permission to really sit with that and dig a little bit deeper and give yourself permission to see things that maybe from a different perspective. So I hope that was helpful for some people, this conversation. Kamila, why don't you share a little bit about what you're up to now in your business, like where you think you're going to be headed, if you have anything you want to share about that, and where people can find you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm still doing Akashic Records readings, and I would love to offer your community $100 off of my readings. So
wow, thank you.
You can find me on Instagram at Anaphora, ANAPHORA wellness.co. I'm sure you guys can link that. And if you just DM me on Insta and say that you've heard me on the podcast, I will send you a link with a discount for a reading. And then I also am really excited because through my hysterectomy recovery, I came up with a new mentorship program called Matriarch. And it's for women, women who are looking to be divine feminine leaders of the new generation. So whether you are looking to just do this in your life as a mother, or like lead a community of women, or you're looking to become a leader in your job or to start your own business, this is a mentorship program where we walk you through really embodying what a regenerative business and lifestyle looks for you. So the entire mentorship is actually tailored to what it is that you are here to do, your calling. And we work through the mind, body, and spirit to really align you and prepare you for your mission. And I'd also love to offer $333 off to your community for my mentorship program. I'm only taking, because I put so much energy into when I work with women, I'm only taking about 3 women in the summer and fall. But if you are interested, again, either find me on my website or DM me, and I will send you more information. And thank you guys so much for having me. Like, this just felt like coming home. I'm like, thank you for always just like saying yes when I'm like, do you guys want to do a thing?
We'll always say yes.
Absolutely. We will always say yes. I'm like, no, you're amazing. And like, to anybody, like your readings are fire.
Oh, yes.
Like
Powerful.
so, yes, so powerful. So like, so I can't even imagine what the mentorship, like how amazing that would be. And of course, you've been so lovely in sending people our way, and we've heard like undeniable so many amazing things from those people about you, which of course we're like, duh. It's Kamila. Like, she's a walking alien, like of course she's amazing. So yeah, so absolutely, and so gracious to give our community such a big discount. So for sure, everybody go do it.
Collaboration over competition forever. I love you, ladies.
100%.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.